Hey, data lovers, it's Jeff here and IDEC, and it's time for another I Love Data Fridays short. And in this little short episode, we're going to be doing a quick update about the executive summary. So, you remember our last week in our I Love Data Fridays, we did our annual reports update and we looked at all the changes. And one of those changes was a change to the design of the executive summary for for our universities, our sites, and our districts. And between after that, I got feedback from you all. So first, I want to say thank you for all your feedback about how to make this executive summary a little better. So let me go over some of the changes and ideas that were given to me. So first, let's just get a quick rundown of the changes, and then we'll take a look at some examples. So the first thing that we changed, or some recommendations for changes, were to the language at the top of the summary explaining what reading recovery is and what the report covers. And so one thing that we changed is we made sure that this little summary mentions the school closures due to the COVID-19. It also states in there very explicitly that the report contains data for only first round students and specifically our discontinued and recommended students. And then it emphasizes that these first round students, reading recovery already teaches the hardest to teach children, but these are the especially hardest to teach children. So it emphasizes that fact and provides a little information about that. In table two, we've changed it so once again it's only using first round discontinued and recommended student data, so that full program, the complete intervention data. And then in table two, there's two columns that show percentages. We added national percentages next to the local percentages so people can get an idea of how similar or dissimilar their data are from national. And then finally, in table three, we went back and redesigned the table, and we just made sure for this year it only used fall and mid-year data. We didn't add in. We took out the year-end data columns in there, and then the gains that get calculated, we just had the table compute a fall to mid-year gain. And so this way you can still tell administrators how much progress your reading recovery students could make. I guess I shouldn't have said finally. One more thing here is that we made sure that all the table titles make mention of like saying students served in the fall. So they all have been modified to add that little phrase in there. So it's clear that once again, in all these tables, we're just looking at students served in the fall. So let's go ahead and take a look at an example. So first up, we're going to look at an example executive summary for a reading recovery site. So I'm just going to zoom in up to the top here. Oops. Get rid of that. Let's zoom in again. So you can see that in this first sentence, like we said in the top paragraph, we added a sentence that just says COVID-19 had a profound impact on schools, and that this report that only students who had a chance to start their intervention in the fall had a chance to receive a complete intervention. So we added that sort of COVID-19 reference in there. We then like I said, added a sentence here that says, the national data shows that these students are the hardest to teach out of all the students served by reading recovery. And typically, these are the students starting the school year in the 10th percentile or lower. So remember, in reading recovery, we serve the lowest 20% or the lowest 20th percentile and lower. These students in the first round are usually in the 10th percentile and lower, especially hard to instruct. So we wanted to emphasize that in there. Table one didn't receive much of a change, like we said, other than it just says children served in the fall. So once again, this is just going to be your discontinued and recommended students. So we're leaving out anyone who was moved, none of above, from the fall in this table. Down below in table two, so you remember, once again, table two is looking at children served with the full series, discontinued or recommended in the fall. So we're just looking at our fall discontinued and recommended. So now the big change was adding the national percentages. So your local percentages are the first percentages shown in the column. So for example, in this all served row, you will see a 66 in this first percentage column, and then the 34. Those are the local percentages, the percentages outside the parentheses. And then inside the parentheses are the national percentages. So when we look at all students served in this sample site, We can see that 66% were discontinued in the fall. Nationally, we usually see 54% of our first round discontinued students, of our first round students discontinued in the fall, and 46% of those with recommended. And this is compared to 34% with that local data. So that's the change there. There's a small table footnote that explains that at the bottom, that the percentages are together and the national percentages are in the parentheses. For table number 3, we got rid of the year-end column and we just made it all about fall to mid-year. So you'll see our fall and mid-year data, and then we calculate a fall to mid-year gain, and we do it not only for your reading recovery students, but we also show it for, and this is a national random sample, and it says it down here, typical first grader is a random sample of 2,800 students from the entire United States. And so you can compare, get a sense of, as you can see with this sample data, the kids were coming in locally at a 1, and they got to a 14, making that gain of 13 text levels. And that's right where they should have ended up. We look at the national random sample finishing, the typical first grader finishing at a 14. Same thing with the writing vocabulary. We did the same thing. And that's it. So we made some changes based off of your feedback, and that's always good. Now, I want to bring over another example real quick. As we've been tweaking these reports and everything, we've been trying to keep it to about a page. And so one of the difficulties with making a report that works for everybody is sometimes it doesn't work for everyone, or doesn't look as good, or doesn't quite come out like you expect it to come out. So, for example, this is actually how this sample report came out first. You'll see that, like I said, I was trying to keep the report to one page, but one of the tables in at the end, it fell over to the second page. But you're like, hey, Jeff, we got all of this extra room over here. What's going on? Why can't we get that to come on over? Well, and in this case, it looked like a few of the percentages, instead of being on one line, got dropped to a second line. So you might have to tweak this a little bit. Like I could move this column over, and that moves everything back up and brings that table back on to one column. And then I can put my mouse right there at the literacy, hit the backspace key, and that just brings it right back over to the first page. Now, we've tried to make really hard to make this as compact as possible, but depending on how many rows you have in your various tables here and how many students you have, the actual count of students may be affecting that. But you can always adjust it and bring it back over. Trainers, let me bring over just a quick UTC example as well. It's the same exact layout, but here is an example UTC report using, oh, Jeff, geez, come on. It's proofreading before we go live with the recording. Let me fix that. Boom, there we go. We can see that you have the same exact layout. We're just looking at children in the fall. We have the same opening at the beginning, the same showing percentages not only for your UTC, but also so you can compare it nationally. And once again, we're just looking at your first round students, discontinued students in this table from fall to mid-year, and we compute that fall to mid-year gain. And then you will see the primary contact trainer name, address, and phone number down here. Okay, before I close out this episode, ladies and gentlemen, I just want to, I relearned something this week again, that when you ask 10 teacher leaders for their opinions on things, you get 10 different opinions back. I just want you to know this report is really just meant to be like a starting point for you. Almost, I mean, it's not a blank slate, but it's like a starting template for you to work with. At times it's hard to show in a video here, but like it's darn near impossible to create one report design that works for everyone. Every implementation of reading recovery is different from the mix of kids, how much data they have, and it affects how many rows appear in a report and can affect how a report looks. And we try to be as accommodating as possible. But like I said, this is just meant to serve as a starting point, meaning that you can edit this report to meet your needs. So if one of the tables isn't meaningful for you, you can simply delete the table from the report or make a copy of this report and have a sort of an edited version. If you want to tell more information or more of a story, you can add information to the report. You can make it two-page report. You can add whatever you want. You can add a picture of your children, pictures of teachers working remotely. I mean, whatever you need to do. So it's not that we're not sensitive to everyone's its needs. It's just really hard to design one report to meet the needs of more than 2,000 school districts across the United States. So just remember, you can use it as a starting point for your own personal reporting. And if you don't want to use it, you don't have to use it. That's okay. Nobody's feelings are going to get hurt. All right, ladies and gentlemen, well, thank you for once again joining me for a short version of I Love Data Fridays. Thanks for coming back. Thank you for our teacher leaders who gave me feedback on the executive summaries so we can make it better for you. And hey, don't forget, we will talk data to you later.